2 years now, and on 4 separate occasions, the We the People Foundation has sponsored meetings in Washington, D.C. to try to bring together in one place various tax researchers from across the nation and IRS officers in order to discuss the alarming conclusions reached by the tax researchers that there is no bona fide law that requires most Americans who live in the 50 states to file and pay the so-called income tax. Each meeting has seen the tax researchers come to Washington from across the nation, but has also seen the IRS officials refuse to attend those meetings where they would have had the opportunity to show the law that proved where the tax researchers were wrong.
Do you realize that without the income tax, thousands of mothers could leave the workforce and work from home or homeschool, producing intelligent, moral children? Without the income tax, do you realize how many ministries could develop and thrive, aiding poverty, drug addiction, homelessness, and teen pregnancy without government strings attached? Now, I can all but guarantee you, based on the track record of faith-based programs, that these ministries would not only be more successful than their government-funded counterparts, but they also would be a decrease in the crime rate, the drug trade, teen pregnancy. From a black woman's standpoint, black people in the not-so-distant past finally were free from slavery. We began to make progress as productive, intelligent American citizens, only to realize that we have an invisible set of shackles on our hands and our wrists, on our ankles, the income tax. And right now, I challenge Kwasi Mfume of the NAACP, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Louis Farrakhan, the Concerned Black Clergy, the Congressional Black Caucus, Joseph Lowry, and Martin Luther King III of the SCLC, to stop concentrating on racial division and get your CPAs, your attorneys, and your membership to research the legality of this invisible shackle. I say to you people, unless you respond to this issue, our people will continue to be in slavery. I challenge you to stop living in the 60s. This is 2001, and the income tax is devastating our people. There was just a foreclosure on my street on Friday as I went to the airport. The marshals were putting stuff out on the front of somebody's house. This is devastating. I challenge you, when you find the truth behind the income tax, don't sit on the fence. The income tax is destroying our people. Don't hide behind your positions or your prestige. Take a stand. In closing, I'll say this. It appears to me that this is a black and white issue, but there are those that are hiding behind shades of gray. They're calling us tax cheats, they're calling us fanatics, they're calling us weirdos. Now you can call me fanatic, you can call me a weirdo, you can call me a kook, you can call me bad, you can call me dingy, you can call me bozo the clown. I don't care what you call me. But I have one question, and I challenge the media to ask it along with me and stop just quoting rhetoric. Where is the law? Show me the law. I was a CPA before I started at the IRS. I started at the IRS in 1988. Any Internal Revenue agents in here? Any FBI agents in here? Anybody? Go ahead, stand up. I like to talk to you guys. I like to educate you. But in 88, I started at the IRS. I was there. I started off as a revenue agent. I ended up as a revenue agent. I just, went up several steps while I was there. I left in 95. Now, I'm going to tell you what went on while I was there, first of all. For the first thing is, I wanted you to know that most of the time, I would say 9 out of 10 times, those revenue agents and revenue officers, they have no clue of any of this information. They don't know what's going on. When I was trained, when I was brought into the IRS, we went through several training classes. I would say my first year we had about 4 training classes, and then thereafter we had at least 2 training classes a year. They might have lasted 3 weeks or so during the year. But what they would do, as opposed to using the Internal Revenue Code that Alex was holding up, they would print up little booklets, and they may be 20 pages, they may be 50 pages long. And they would have this information in there and say, okay, this law says that the people have to do this, and this law says that the people have to do that. So what you do is you read over this information as they go over it in class, and then you have these tests. So what do you do to pass the test? You make sure you understand everything, not in the code, not in the regulations, but what's in that little booklet. And I made A's on all my tests. Now, I was not astute enough to think to myself, okay, we're not using the code or the regulations for this. Why aren't we using the code and regulations? I trusted them, thinking that, okay, now these codes and regulations, I'm sure a lot of you have looked at the codes and regulations. First of all, it's thick. Second of all, you have to do this to see it. So I'm thinking, okay, they're saving us some time and energy and some eyesight, and they're putting the information that's in the codes and regulations into these booklets that have much larger writing so that we can understand it that way. Folks, that's not really what was going on. Obviously, you know that. So when I was there, we got trained and went through, and then, you're sworn in. Yes, IRS agents, somebody asked me, the IRS agents do take an oath of office. We swear to uphold the Constitution and do this and that. I don't have it with me, but we did do that. When the first thing that they do is and I'm giving you tips here as I go, they usually bother the mom and pops. Okay, now if you have a W-2 job and you filled out your W-4 and you're making $60,000, $70,000 a year, and they're taking out $12,000, $13,000 a year, and that's what you're putting on your tax return, then they don't bother you because they already have you. They have your W-2. They know you made $60,000 a year. They see that they took out 12, and they're happy. Okay, 9 times out of 10, they don't bother those people. My first training class, after we finished and got ready to go do audits on people, we didn't audit people that had a W-2. We audited small businesses, the businesses that make this country run, the mom and pop startup businesses who are trying to employ 2 or 3 people. Those are the ones that get bothered. Number one, they're small. They can't afford to defend themselves with an attorney. They don't know the law, but even if they wanted to know the law, they would have to go out and hire an attorney and pay them $15,000. So these businesses are the ones that get picked on. It's the small people. The corporations, they don't get picked on that much. By the time I got to the end of my career at the IRS, I was auditing mid-sized corporations. I would never see the owner. The mom and pop would be there. They would explain their business. They really enjoyed what they did. They would explain everything about, I know everything about
about 5 or 6 businesses, because the person sat there in the interview and explained this to me. They were proud of what they did. The larger corporations, you never see the owner. You never see the president, the vice president, any of these people. They'll send their CPAs and attorneys in to scream at you. So they try to send someone in to intimidate the IRS, whereas the small businesses, the IRS would come in and intimidate them. Okay, so those people at the IRS, that's what they do. So that's your first pointer. If you know what you're talking about, they bother you less. There are people who set up partnerships. Now, we went through partnership training, but some of these larger businesses had partnerships that were so elaborate that I know I wasn't the only one that looked at it and had to, study it a while before I was able to understand what was going on. And I'm sure that more than half the people just said, forget it, I'll just pass this tax return off because I don't know what's going on. So that's how they get away with it. And the little mom and pop have their Schedule C, and they have their income on there and their deductions, and then they whack away at the deductions, and the people don't know what to do, so they just acquiesce. That's the problem. We need to educate people not to give in to that. Now, another thing that I noticed when I was there and didn't understand, I was an internal revenue agent. Okay, let me explain this right quick. An internal revenue agent goes out and audits companies. An office auditor is something different. An office auditor doesn't have as much knowledge or experience. They have people come into the IRS office after someone else has looked at the tax return and pick at your deductions, your charitable contributions. You got to prove this $1,500. So they don't go out. The internal revenue agents will go out. They would assess the tax. Internal revenue agents were not required to collect the tax. They were required to ask for the money at the end of the audit. But if the person didn't have the money, then they just wrote it up, had them sign that they owe X amount of dollars, and they went away. Then over here you have the collections officer, the revenue officer, or a collections person. They would get this report that says that John Doe's company owes $20,000. They will go out and try to collect it and put him on a payment plan. Now, back to the internal revenue agent. If there was a case that was considered fraudulent, where maybe there were drugs involved or lots and lots of unreported income, it wouldn't go to the collections when it was over. It would go to the criminal investigation division. There, somebody like Joe Bannister would take all the work that I did and then take it to the person and read them their rights. They didn't work the case up. The revenue officer, the revenue agent worked up the case. So I was the one who supposedly knew all these laws and went into these people with this information. When there was a situation where there was a raid, where the Internal Revenue Service decided that they were going to take someone's property, whether it be their house, their car, their business, or whatever, then I noticed and didn't understand then why there were so many people there. I would look up and I would see my revenue officer friends, but I'd also see the ATF with their jackets on. And I'm thinking, oh, they must be getting ready to raid a really big business because they've got 15 people in here, and most of them aren't from the IRS, they're from the ATF. How many people know why the ATF was there? Somebody said, why was the ATF there? Because I didn't hear the answer. Why was the ATF there? They are the only ones that have enforcement authority. The revenue officer, the one who levied your bank account, the one who garnished your wages or put the letter out there for that, he didn't have authority. I didn't have authority either. Some of you who are familiar with the Truth and Taxation hearings that we had in February, where I had a copy of my pocket commission, and I'm sorry I didn't bring it, but it says that I have the authority to do all this stuff, and then it has some certain codes at the bottom of them. And when you look in the Internal Revenue regulations, those codes mean I had a non-enforceable pocket commission. I'm flipping this badge out at you, sir. You need to give me your books and records now, And all that time I thought I had some authority and didn't have any authority. Now, I think that was so wrong on so many different levels because, first of all, you're getting people out there that don't know they don't have authority. Second of all, if something happens to an Internal Revenue agent, and those of you out there that know that we don't have authority, then that was going to be a big problem. So I was infuriated when I found out that I was out there with no authority. As much as I found out that you all aren't required to file a tax return, and then I found out not only that, I didn't have the authority to ask you for that. So that was wrong. But the ATF was out there. That was another thing. That's another hint that I didn't know until I left and did the research. People like you used to be called tax protesters. Now they call you that behind your back. They can't say it out in your face. But they never let the tax protesters around us. They have a special group for people like you. And my theory on why is because people that think might start reading and understanding. I was not, for those of you, a lot of people think I left the IRS because of this issue. I didn't leave the IRS because of this issue. I did not know about this while I was at the IRS. I left the IRS for family reasons. I had my second child. It became a three-ring circus trying to run a household, take care of a family, and work at the IRS. Because by the time I had that second child, I was in the situation where I had moved up in the IRS, had a lot of responsibility, project responsibility, larger corporations, and getting wired up and taking bribes, stuff like that. And that's a lot on you mentally anyway. But then you got these little critters saying, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, mommy," when you get home, and your head is hurting like this, and you slap peanut butter and jelly on a piece of bread and give them some milk, and you go lay down because your head is doing like this, and I'm looking at the ceiling saying, this is not how God wanted this to be. It's not right. This is not right. So I went through that mental struggle about taking care of the family versus bringing the money in. And along the way, both of us, my husband and I, decided that I was going to quit. Now, at the IRS, you can't have a second job. I couldn't work at the IRS and then go to work at Kinko's or something like that. They may let you work at McDonald's or something like that, but you couldn't get a high-paying job because they consider that a conflict of interest. And surely you couldn't go out and prepare tax returns and do bookkeeping for people, which would be substantially more income, because they consider that a conflict of interest. So I had to go from 50 to 0 when we made that decision. So along the line, we just decided to make it, and God provided. We're in the same house. We didn't have to move into an apartment or a smaller house or anything like that. We are still here. But that's another tactic, because as you talk to people that are within the IRS now, they may believe what you have to say, and I do have some even routing me on secretly. But they're probably making 70, 75, 80 now. They're not going to just, a lot of them don't have other skills. A lot of them are not CPAs, so they couldn't go to work for a CPA firm or start their own CPA firm or whatever. Especially in the collection division, a lot of them, all they know is collections. So the only thing that they could get is another collection job, working for a collection organization or working for a corporation that has collections, like maybe a credit card company. But they're not going to get anywhere near $50,000, $60,000 there. So they have shackles on them too. That's not to justify why they're still there. Most of them are still there because they don't know. Once you know, then you got to make that decision. I'm going to give you a couple of more hints about what went on when I was in the IRS. Now, for those of you who are fighting the IRS on income, their little secret, which you can always shoot down, they use what you call the indirect method. How many of you have heard of the indirect method? Okay, I'm telling you some inside stuff, so I wouldn't expect you to know that. But this is how they determined that they were going to make you self-employed people, mostly. Because remember, the W-2, your employer has already told them how much you made and how much withheld. But for those self-employed people, let's say the roofing company or the painter, they would ask you questions first, little sneaky stuff like, do you own a safe? You have any money that you got this year that was an inheritance? You have any money buried in the backyard? Yes, that was a question that we had to ask. Did they have any money buried in the backyard? And I had a man to tell me, yes, he had money. When somebody said yes, we were required to ask him to dig it up. But this man said, I had money in my backyard. I was born in the 30s. We just had the Depression, and my parents told me not to trust banks. But lately, I dug it all up, and I put about $8,000 or $9,000 in the bank at a time. And sure enough, his bank statements had $8,000 or $9,000 going in them every month. So, but anyway, I didn't have to have him dig it up. But you asked all these questions, then you get them locked in. Okay, they didn't receive any inheritance, which is supposedly non-taxable. They didn't have an insurance claim. Like let's say if your car got totaled or something, and you got $6,000 or $7,000 check or something like that. Anything that they consider to be a non-taxable item, they would ask you about that. So they would, and I'm facing you all, they would draw a line. This is what we do, draw a line down the middle of a sheet of paper and put income over here. Put expenses over here and income over here. So over on this side is the income that they say that they made. Let's say they're a roofing company and he said he made, let's make it simple, $50,000 in income and didn't have any inheritance or didn't have any insurance claims that came in. And over here was the fund side. This is where the expenses were. So we put all of the expenses that were on the tax return. Let's say he had, he made 50. Let's say he had $40,000 in expenses on the tax return. Now we would, of course, challenge the $40,000 first. Let's say that the $40,000, he had receipts for shingles and glue and whatever, all that other stuff they use. Let's say that. But on that side, we would also start being nosy. What kind of car is he driving? What kind of house does he have? Does he have a new roof on his own house? And that column with the expenses may have been $100,000. So I had to ask, sir, you put that you made $50,000 on this tax return, but this year you spent $100,000. Where's the other 50? And that would intimidate people, because even if they had a legitimate excuse for it, they would just get scared. And again, I tell you, always, never back down from a challenge. So a lot of the cases that I had, I got the people to sign off that they owed this money because they could not explain to me why they had 50 over here in the income column and they spent $100,000. It could have been something as simple as the income that you included over here is not just my W-2. You looked at my bank accounts and you put money on there that you saw in my bank account beyond 50, but all that was transfers between bank accounts. But it's a fear. Now, the IRS is 99% bluff. People are so scared that they don't stand up to the challenge. Now, I did have one guy that owned a nightclub, and he, every year his tax return, the net that he put on there was like between $300 and $500. But he lived in a $270,000 home. He drove a nice car, a nice large car. So as a revenue agent, I went out to the car dealership to find out how much the car was worth. I saw some receipts from a jewelry store. I went to the jewelry store and picked up the receipt where he bought his wife all these diamonds and stuff. And when I put the income over there, after his deductions, I put the $300 and some odd dollars over there and maybe $10,000 more, and he had $300,000 in expenses that year. Then that case went over to the criminal investigation division because it was just too far off, that kind of thing. So when they use these indirect methods to figure out how much money you made, they're just getting them out of thin air. I could have put anything on that side. I could have just, put anything over there. They like my cases because I documented everything that I put on there, but they just make up stuff. For those of you who are self-employed, don't ever back down to anything like that. For the, they came out right before I left with some guidelines to audit certain industries or what do they call it? MSSP, Market Specialization Program or something like that. They had a guide on ministers, and they would tell you how to audit a minister. When I was at the IRS, somehow I ended up being in charge of something called a preacher project. Got an audit that was a preacher and someone had ratted on him. You know that 1-800 number they have where people call and rat on people? They rat on preachers too for whatever different reason. So at some point I ended up, make a long story short, for all the calls or letters that came in to the IRS concerning the preachers in Georgia, they came to me, and I had to read through all this stuff and see, I don't care who he's sleeping with, I don't care what he's smoking. I have to see if there's anything where he's making money and not putting on his tax return. So with those, I went through those, and I was even coordinated with people in Salt Lake City and all this stuff like that. Then they have them on the beauticians. Any beauticians in here? They got to the point where they were figuring out how much shampoo you bought, And per ounces of shampoo, they would figure out how many heads you washed, and then they would assign a dollar value, because they ask you in the interview, well, how much did you charge for a washing set? And you say, well, that's $25. So they would say, okay, normally what people would do is they'll put their expenses on there, but they wouldn't put all the income. So that's what the IRS is looking for. They're looking for you to put all of your expenses on a tax return for you filers, and not all your income. So they want to work back into your income by figuring out by the expenses that you put on the tax return how much income you really made. So they would say, okay, she bought X amount of ounces of shampoo this year, and we're going to multiply that. You know, this amount of ounces of shampoo can wash this many heads. So we're going to multiply this many, and they get away with it, because this is what they call something that has been statistically proven, just like all this other stuff, statistically proven. And they use that, and they said, well, you know, we've got this book, and it tells us how much you how much you charge. You told us how much you charge. It tells us how much shampoo you use per head, and you bought this amount of shampoo. So you underreported your income by $27,000. And people say, you know, they know they did, and say, oh, okay. You know, so they never challenge them. They never challenge them. Now, I left the IRS in 1995. That decision that I had to make based on my Christian faith was that I'm supposed to be my husband's helpmeet, and I'm supposed to be my mother's children. I am not supposed to be the Gestapo queen. So that was that. I left the IRS 95. We were broke in 95. We were broke in 96, and by the end of 97, I decided that I was going to have to start something. So being a CPA, I started doing taxes. Right when I left, I built up the tax practice. And remember I told you I worked with the preachers. I was auditing a lot of preachers my last 2.5 years there. When I left the IRS, I decided, you know, as a Christian, I think I should go out and tell these people how to stay out of trouble. So I started doing seminars, helping the ministers to not get in trouble, showing them what they shouldn't do and everything they should avoid, and telling them about cases that I had so they can avoid, you know, having to deal with the IRS. So by 99, 2000, the ministers were coming to me saying, you know, I have some parishioners that came to me and said that we're really not liable for the income tax. Now, these were my prized clients. So I said to myself, I really need to do some research on this, because I started hearing it in 99 also, but I just was too busy doing other stuff to research it. But when the ministers came to me, I started saying, okay, I need to research this at some point. Still had it on the back burner because I had some other things going on. And then how many of you are familiar with We the People Foundation? Okay. The first ad that I was aware of came out in the USA Today in July of 2000. And one of my ministers called and said that there's one of my parishioners, and she just has some stuff she just really, really wants to talk to you about. Can I give you her telephone number? So I said, sure. Well, can the minister give the girl my number? The girl called me, and she asked me point blank, are we or are we not supposed to file taxes? Now, I hadn't done any research, and I didn't tell her, oh, you know you better file. We've been filing taxes for 88 years. I didn't tell her that. I said, well, you know, you want the canned answer or do you want the real answer? And she said, I want the real answer. And I said, well, I haven't done any research, but, you know, there's a lot of evidence out there that evidently is floating around that says we're not. And then she lit up and started telling me. She talked to me for an hour, and she let me know about the USA Today had just come out. Now, that first USA Today on July 7th, 2000, among other things, had a challenge in there from Bill Conklin. Anybody know Bill Conklin? Bill Conklin had a $50,000 reward in there for anybody who could prove, and I'm paraphrasing, that we owe taxes. And you know, $50,000 to me is a lot of money. And I kept my codes and regulations from the IRS. I had them on my shelf. I could see them from my desk. I said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set aside 3 or 4 days to write this man up maybe a 15-page paper on where in the law it says that we have to pay taxes. I'm going to get this $50,000. I'm going to pay off this car I bought my husband for his birthday. I'm going to pay off the Visa bill. I mean, that's the type person I am. When I make a decision, I make a decision. So I said, okay, I'm going to put everything aside. I'm going to do this research. Now, 2 days later, I was doing like this. You know, because as I was using the real codes and regulations that we never looked at when I was at the IRS, I started seeing some strange things in there, some inconsistencies and some double talk and some triple talk and a lot of legalese. And I said, wait a minute, I am not able to prove this man wrong after 2 days. So I put it down maybe a couple of days, and I got back into it. And then maybe after 2 weeks, I discovered this thing is a big hoax. And I started to do a lot of research. I started sucking up everything I could see. And I heard about Joe Bannister through the We the People paper. Joe Bannister was a criminal investigation agent for the IRS that had left. So I said, well, he speaks my language. If he has anything to say, if he's written a book or whatever, then I'll be able to understand it because he probably wrote it in the form, you know, the IRS stuff. So I got a hold to his website. On his website, wanted to order a couple of his books. I always order 2 of everything. For some reason or another, I keep one for myself and make sure I give it to somebody else. I wrote him a $44 check, $20 each for the book, and shipping. And about maybe a week and a half later, I got a phone call. He said, hello, I'm Joe Bannister. And after I picked myself off the floor, I decided to give you a call. Because within that check, I had, I'm a real, I guess my motto has been, based on my training from my parents, come big or stay home. Once I realized that this was a fraud, I immediately started telling people about it. And I wanted to get crowds of people together, all my friends and relatives. So I invited them to, not necessarily a seminar, but a meeting that I was going to tell them what my new discovery was. And I wrapped those checks up in there. I wrapped the check up in the flyer so that he would know who I am, ex-IRS agent CPA. So he knew immediately when he opened up the envelope that I was an ex-IRS agent and a CPA. So we talked on the phone for a long time, and that's how I got to meet Joe Bannister. He's my CPA, and I'm his CPA. So if Joe Bannister has a problem in California, I'm on a plane. That's where we've got to be. We've got to stick together. We've got to stick together as a group because, number one, you all know that there's power in numbers. Number two, he can't be out there on his own. You know, they'll try to shoot him down, but if he's by himself. But if there are 50 of us out there, then they're going to be a little bit more careful about what they do, and they're going to be afraid. So that's how I started rolling with this information. I'm still in research mode. I don't have a lot of time to do research, but as much as I can get away with, I do, because my children are still preteens, and I am first a wife and a mother before all of this. So that's what happened. You know, the Bible says a lot of things, and for those of you who don't want to hear about the Bible, I'm not going to be long with it, but that's what I go by. My father always taught me to be the best at what you're going to do and be it all the way. If you're going to be a prostitute, be the best prostitute out there. And yes, he did say that. My father did say that to me. So I learned that if I was going to get into something, I was going to get into it. Okay, so as I became a Christian and started reading, all this stuff started kicking in about my responsibilities, and then, you know, that made the decision easier to leave the IRS. And for those of you who've talked to your Christian friends about this issue, and they'll bring up 2 issues to me. Number one, they'll say, well, the Bible says, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Okay, my response to that was, this ain't Caesar's. Okay? That scripture, if you really look at it, it says, therefore, if you owe taxes, pay taxes. If you owe tribute, pay tribute. That if is there, and I don't owe it. And then the other one is, oh, you know, we're supposed to submit to authority, and they're the authorities, and we're supposed to, you know what? If you read it right, you're supposed to submit to godly authority, okay? Oh, well, I don't see it like that. Okay, so where did Paul write most of the epistles? Where was he when he wrote them?
Prison.
Why was he in prison?
Preaching the truth.
Well, was he submitting to the authorities? If he was submitting to the authorities, he wouldn't have been in jail, right? So I start off right there with Paul. Paul was in jail because he refused to do what the authorities said do. They told him not to talk about Jesus anymore. He refused to do that. He was in jail, okay? And then I take him all the way back to the Hebrew midwives who were told to kill those babies. What did they do? They went and told the Caesar, well, these ladies are so strong, they had these babies out in the field. Were they submitting to authority and killing the babies? No. What about Rahab, hiding them in her quarters, the spies? I take them all the way back, and they're like this. You know, but you know what? I like to make people think. I'm an educator. I like to make people think. Think about what you say before you say it. My father told me to be present at every breath. And not that I do that all the time, because I do talk a lot. But they can't use that on me about the authority, because godly authority has been disobeyed. Ungodly authority has been disobeyed throughout the Bible. This is ungodly authority. And if we acquiesce to it, we're choosing man over God. Okay? So... let's talk about where we are now. I'm going to talk a little bit about We the People Foundation. I need to be able to do what I want to do with my energy. If I want to work 16 hours a day in my office to make a little bit more money so my family can go on a decent vacation, I don't want you taking my money. So what am I going to do about it? Am I going to sit there and complain? Don't complain to me. That's one of the things. I have a low tolerance for ignorance. And my dad always taught me, if you don't like where you are at point A, go to point B. Don't sit at point A and complain about it. So people who complain, I just shut them down right then. Don't complain about, oh, all this taxes. There's something you can do about it. Oh, what can I do about it? And when I explain to them, then they don't want to deal with that. They want to continue to live in fear. Just shake the dust off your feet. Educate those who are interested in doing something about it. You know, 9 times out of 10, it's that small business owner who the IRS is trying to suck everything out of, federal taxes, state taxes, the self-employment taxes and all. That's where you should start as far as your education is concerned. Those who feel like they have something to lose. Because if you got a W-2 and they're already taking 12 out, you're really not seeing it. But if you have to write a $12,000 check at the end of the year, then you're more apt to start paying attention to people like us, right? That's what I've been getting. I'm not a former certified fraud examiner. I am a certified fraud examiner. That's something different from being at the IRS. I went and got, took the class and took a test, and I am a certified fraud examiner, and I am examining the biggest fraud this country ever had. I've always had these radars that go up, when I hear problems. And as a certified fraud examiner, a CPA and all that, they're not going to stand up and say, you don't know what you're talking about. So I have that benefit in my favor. But once you realize that they might be interested in it, then you need to get them more information. My dad, he's a wise guy. He said, never pour a bowl full into a saucer. Okay, that's what he told me, and I understand that. I understood it then, but now I understand it so much more, because there are people who will shut down on you when you give them all this information. Now I know that you all in this room are beyond that, because you've already decided and you already have been doing research. So I can pour your bowl in. When you get to the people, don't be careful not to throw it all at them. Give them, say a few words to them. Give them. Like I've got this flyer, this one-page flyer, and it has enough information on there to where you're going to realize whether the person is interested or whether they're not. And don't spend any time with those who aren't interested, because you'll experience burnout. And I almost experienced burnout and realized that I need to concentrate on people who are already interested and those who don't know about it that have influence. The ministers, I'm back to the ministers again. I'm in the process of trying to get meetings with some of the ministers that are in the Atlanta area. I live in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It's about 18 miles east of Atlanta. It's a suburb of Atlanta. And right now I'm trying to get a meeting with one, but believing that I can get a meeting with these guys through somebody at their church or either another pastor to let them know what's going on. Some of them have recently made the decision to relinquish their 501c3. Which, that gives government control over the church. They're starting to understand. Now, the group of pastors that I'm trying to deal with are those who understand what's going on. Then you got this other group with the SCLC and all that. They just Jesse Jackson type, Al Sharpton type. I don't have time to deal with that right now, But those who believe that this word is true, they gotta make a decision. They've got to make a decision. So I'm working on those. My family members strongly support me, even though they still file a tax return. I don't have a problem within. For a lot of men I know, their wives are scared to death. It's a security thing, okay? They might believe you, honey, I believe you, but I am so scared, okay? I try to talk to the wives and let them know that you're gambling with your children's lives if you don't get with your husband. If you have kids, if you don't, you got nieces and nephews or somebody's little life that you have some kind of influence over. You need to do something about it, because see, my children right now are 9 and 11. And 50 years ago, when the tax rate was 3%, if I had jumped in and said, we got to do something now, people, because if we don't do something in 50 years, the tax rate is going to be over 50%. That includes the federal taxes, the state taxes, the ad valorem tax, the gas tax, the car tax, the cigarette tax, all that. We're going to have this problem. They would have locked me up in what we call Georgia Regional. You probably called it the loony bin. They would have locked me up because I'm running around here ranting and raving about the tax rate being 50% not too long from now. Well, let's fast forward. The tax rate is over 50%. Okay, let's go forward more. Who's to say that in 20 or even less years from now, my children are not going to be working 40 hours a week or more and receiving a stipend from the government? Can anybody say that won't happen? Can anybody say that my children won't be more in servitude than I am right now, 15 years from now? I can't let that happen. I can't go to sleep knowing that we've come from 3% to 52% and do nothing about it. Because the more you give them, the more they're going to take. Our founding fathers and, even Frederick Douglass, I found I incense a lot of people because I make you get out of your comfort zone. And I found some quotes and put them on the political action board. I'm also the political director at my church. I used to be the state director for a group called the Network of Politically Active Christians. As a matter of fact, the first time I ever came to Dallas, I came with that group to a conference. But I have a board, just a bulletin board, and I post information on there. I usually post whatever I want to post on there. And my pastor is one of those who actually let me stand up in front of the whole church and tell them about this stuff. I have that kind of pastor. I really do. And, the pastors that are around him and his friends are the ones I'm trying to get to right now, but I scare people with this information. This is not a fight for the weak. You got to have some backbone. And if you're going to sit up there and read this information and hee-haw about it and get on the fence, just go somewhere and sit down. This is a fight. One of the things that I want to get across to you about levies and liens and all that stuff and W-4s. First of all, somebody asked about W-4s. Now, I haven't had to deal with the W-4 since I left. Some people are signing them without prejudice and all that stuff we talked about before. Some people aren't signing them at all. The bottom line that I have to say to you about W-4s is if you are there for a fight, then you're going to have to fight. If you have an employer that is teachable and you bring to this employer the law concerning the W-4 and withholding being for the non-resident aliens and all that, you're going to find out whether or not they're going to obey the law or whether they're going to be afraid of the IRS. So you have to make a decision if they're going to be afraid of the IRS. Am I willing to go further with this, or am I going to acquiesce to some kind of a compromise? I'm not telling you what to do. Some people end up being fired because they refuse to fill it out, or they refuse to fill it out with anything but exempt. So it's up to the person. Am I willing to get fired and go find another job because this idiot will not listen to me? Some people have been threatened with a lawsuit. They called the IRS. One guy called the IRS. It was an employer that was given this information. He called the IRS and says, hey, this employee, this is the one I sent you the exempt W-4, and you sent it back saying I have to withhold at the single zero rate, and now he's showing me this information saying that I'm not supposed to do this stuff. And and he says he's going to sue me if I take his money out. Are you going to defend me? And the IRS, of course, told him no, they're not going to defend him. So the guy said, okay. And then he stopped withholding on the guy. So it all depends on the employer. And I'm talking about not just the employer, but all the people who are responsible for whatever outlets the IRS is using to get your money. They need to be educated. The bank manager, the bank president, if you go in and educate these people, be nice to them. Hi, sir. My name is Sherry Jackson, and I've had an account here since I was 11. When my mother was a DeKalb County social worker, she started my account. I was 11 years old. It was a savings account, and then as I got older and got a job, I opened up a checking account here, and I've always had my accounts here, my first 2 cars that I financed here. And I wanted to let you know something. Here's some information I want to go over with you. This is a notice of levy. The IRS sends these things out. You may have seen one before floating around in here, but I wanted to let you know this is a notice of levy. This isn't a levy. And see, the real levy applies here. It says it applies to, federal government employees. And some of these people that are at the bank aren't, that you're getting these notices of levy, they aren't government employees. And also, it's a notice of levy. A real levy, you have to have signed by a judge and no. So I'm just letting you know, if you get one of these notices of levy with my name on it, I would suggest that you not freeze my bank account or take any money, because I'll sue you personally and I'll sue the bank. I'm going to leave this information with you, sir, so you can go over it. If you have any questions, here's my card, so you can give me a call and I can give you further information and I can educate you more. But I just want to let you know that what you're getting from the IRS is not valid. I know a lot of people are scared. They live in fear about the IRS, and they think that everything that they get from the IRS is true. But see, here, I'm giving you this information, and I'm letting you know that this is not true. This isn't a true levy, So if you have any questions, again, let me know. But, I would suggest that you not bother my bank account. If they send you a notice of levy on me, you can give me a call, and we can go over this information, and I can show you point by point what's wrong, again, if it's been a while. But don't take any money out of my account, or I'm going to have to be forced to sue you in the bank. Have a good day. And that's for anybody that the IRS uses, because the IRS never seizes anything. They never seize anything. They get your employer, they get the tow truck company, they get others to do their dirty work. Those are the people that you need to educate. If they come and get your car, you need to tell that tow truck, excuse me, what do you have here that says that you're supposed to take my vehicle? Is this valid? Or have you researched whether this is valid, sir? I would suggest you do that, because if you take my car away without knowing that you know that this thing is valid, then I'm going to sue you and your company. Now, I know you're just an employee at the company, but your boss is going to be quite angry if you take this car without giving this information to him so he can check it out. Okay. Other instances of, there's a lot of abuse out there. And again, the IRS, revenue officers, half the time, more than half the time, they don't know what's going on. They, a lot of times they'll bring police officers out there with them, sheriffs out there, which are the ones that have the true authority. So the revenue officer or the revenue agent will come out with the sheriff. Our sheriffs need to be educated. Our sheriffs, our deputies need to be educated. I just had a situation over spring break. I'm a fighter. I'm one of those real in-your-face type people. I'm a very busy person. I run a tight ship. I wanted to take my children on a vacation. They'd never been on a cruise, but they wanted to go to Florida. And I just so happened to get a phone call from, I'm going to go ahead and tell it, the Ramada. And they said they have a land cruise package. I said, this will be perfect. We're going to put you in the Ocean Beach Resort. This was the Ocean Beach Resort. Sounds good, right? Okay, so I said, okay, I'm going to pay for this package, da-da-da-da. We get there, and this Ocean Beach Resort is the Roach Motel. Not only that, there were 50 people in the lobby, all angry, because they realized that they've been herded in here like cattle. And see, I start getting real angry real easily when stuff like that happens. They put you in this long line, and you had to do all this check-in. And then part of the hotel was over here, and the beach was over there. But part of the hotel was on the other side of this big, busy street. And they were putting all these people over there. And I realized after a while, this package was over on the other side. So what did I do? See, I don't play with people. I called the sheriff. I called him. I said, I'm a certified fraud examiner from Atlanta, and there's a fraud going on here, and things are about to get to blows, so you all need to get out here now. Because there were actually people that were getting ready to fight, because they had parked out in the front thinking that they were going to get in quickly, and some cars were blocking other cars that were trying to get out, and the people were going to blows because the man said, I'm not getting out of line. I'm third here. I've waited you know, I started out back there, I'm third in line. I'm not getting out of line until I get my reservation. So they came, and I told them what went on, and now I'm going to send the 2 deputies, there were 2 deputies, I'm going to send them a package. I'm going to say thank you for helping me, you know, back in April, and I'm going to send them a package. And I know they're willing to, because they sat and talked to me, and we talked about other things. Before I left them, I said, make sure you read your Constitution. So that's how you get in there. How many of you know police officers personally? Of you, how many of you have given them some of this information? Okay? They have friends also. We need to educate our police officers. They don't know. Educate our sheriff's departments, the deputy sheriffs, the police officers, anybody that you think in the end is going to have some influence. And even those people who are naysayers or might, you know, say you're crazy, what if they're on a jury one day and somebody's put on trial for failure to file a tax return or something like that? They're going to know that there's something going on. They're going to remember you. So at least give them some information. Percentage of the population actually took part in the revolution?
20%? Less than that. 3 or 4%. 15%.
It was 3 or 4%. 3 or 4%. 3 or 4% of the people took part in the revolution. And they were able to defeat the British. So I don't get that upset when we don't have hundreds and hundreds of people. As long as I tell somebody, and it keeps going, eventually we're going to get to the bottom of it. Also, I have a flyer that I pass out. It's called Did You Know That You're a Slave? And it asks a lot of pertinent questions. And at the bottom it gives some websites. Now, a lot of people might approach you. You know, a lot of people that are novice at this, they're going to get in their mind when you first come up, oh, all that person wants is some money. They want you to buy something from them. But this little article gives websites. It says, I'm not asking for any money. I'm not telling you to go out and buy anything. Do your own research on these websites. So they don't have that excuse against you. And the other one is for professionals, or so-called professionals, the people who do taxes and that kind of thing. A $300 reward for them. Now, Bill Conklin has a $50,000 reward. This group has a $300,000. There are lots of rewards out there, but this is just one that I had, a one-pager, because I like to give people pages. Remember about not pouring the bowl full into the saucer? So I like to give people one-pagers, and it's a challenge to those CPAs, and I've had to use it a couple of times because they automatically will say, what is wrong with you? You know, we're supposed to, you know, pay taxes, and da-da-da. I said, wait a minute, here. Here's this $300,000 reward. Now, you go out and prove that we have to pay taxes and file an income tax return, and I won't even ask you to share the money with me. I'll rejoice with you, as a matter of fact. And since it's true that we have to pay, it should be easier than winning the lottery, right? So what are you waiting on? And, you know, they'll, you know, that kind of thing. I just, you know, they'll go away. They won't say anything else about it. But, you know, in the back of my mind, I think they are thinking about this kind of thing. And now this is the biggest announcement. This is the biggest announcement. How many of you heard of Larkin Rose? Larkin Rose has just come out with a video. How many of you have seen Larkin Rose's video? The video is superb. A 15-year-old will be able to understand who is truly liable for the income tax. It's done in computagenics. How many of you know about the VeggieTales? Okay. It's a kiddie thing. It's done like the VeggieTales, and the little people move around, and the IRS agent is trying to get the money, and he got this smile on his face thinking he's getting the money, but after Larkin explains everything, he gets this big frown and walks off. But you know what? He did it simply. He didn't sound like a raving lunatic, although he is monotone. Please do not eat a big dinner and then put this video in. But you know, with us who are already understanding, you know, you're going to be so excited when you see this video. His website for the video is different from his regular website, and it is theft, THEFT, hyphen, BY, hyphen, deception, DECEPTION.com. Theftbydeception.com. I think it's $20. I ordered over 20 of them. I have none left. None. I tried to get Larkin to send me some so I could have them today, and I think he went on vacation. We communicate with each other maybe every 3 days or so. I didn't get a chance to get in touch with him. Go ahead and order it directly. If you have people that, you know, some people don't like to give free information out. I just so happen to know that certain people aren't going to buy it, but they'll look at it. I had a class with, who's from Tennessee? Okay. Oh, the head of the state audit department, his name is Bubba. That's not his real name, but he calls himself Bubba. He likes to be called Bubba. He came to Atlanta, and he did a CPE, a continuing professional education class for the Georgia Society of Certified Fraud Examiners. He is the head of the audit department, the state audit department for Tennessee. He's an excellent speaker. And guess what I did when he left? I told him, sir, thank you, you did an excellent job, and I have a gift for you. And I gave him Larkin Rose's tape. He has, that's it right there. She's holding this tape up. This is a superb tape. This guy from Tennessee had more letters behind his name than anybody I know. He is a CPA, an MBA, a JD, and a whole bunch of letters, you know. So this is the kind of people that I want to get this information. And based on the things that he said and the things that he did while he spoke to us that day, I know he's going to look at it. It's not like I just give it to people. If I get any idea that you might just toss it, but I know he's going to look at it, because when I walked away from him, he said, do you have a card? And I said, it's in the tape, because I had opened the tape and stuck it in there. But this man is going to look at that tape, and I don't know what he's going to do with it, but I have a feeling that he is very open-minded based on his speaking to us that day. And so that might go somewhere. Those are the kind of people, your ministers, for those of you who go to church, you might not want to say a lot to them to get them thinking that you're imbalanced, because a lot of times, but you know what? You know what? The IRS makes people think that. They put the idea out that these people are imbalanced. They do that. So what you do is you give them some information. Pastor, I have a tape for you. You can keep it. It's yours. Look at it over dinner sometimes, or you know, during your lunch break, or you know, that kind of thing. That's what you do. You just tell them, you know, here's something for you. You know, they might not want to go to Blockbuster that night. They might not be a movie type person, but just tell them this is an educational tape. I want you to look at it. Or I need your opinion on this. For those of you who know accountants and whatnot, I need your opinion on this. Can you look at this for me? You can keep it as long as you want. You can keep it for good. That's how you get people interested. Getting people educated, those of you are here are probably out of your comfort zone in that area. But I think, and I'm getting ready to get down to the bottom with you here. How many of you invited somebody here today? Okay, that's not everybody. Everybody should have invited somebody. Alex has a list, evidently. You got the letter. You should have made 20 copies of that letter and given it to other people so that they could be here to hear what's really going on. Now, and I'm getting ready to get racial with you. How many of you know somebody of a different race that you think might be interested in this? Okay. This issue is a racially unifying issue. Now, y'all know, you all obviously know how I feel about Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. They are publicity whores. And every time there is a racial issue, now I know, let me say this. I don't know what Al Sharpton's done, but I know, you know, back in the 60s, Jesse did some good things. You know, and there were some good things that may have been done. But right now, anytime there's something racial coming up, okay, then he's in the camera, and Al Sharpton and all those. And 30 years of welfare, 30 years of handouts, and I don't see much progress. I'm sorry, I just don't, okay? Some of these people are doing good, some of them have done good, but right now, the issue is we need to be getting together. Remember that divide and conquer? It's working, because we're not paying attention, okay? And remember what I said? They call Clarence Uncle Tom. Clarence Thomas Uncle Tom. I don't know anything about him, but you can't call the kettle black. The pot can't call the kettle black. So when they're approached about these issues, which I'm not sure if all of them have, but I have personally approached one of them, not those two, but one of these people, these so-called black leaders about it, they are scared to death of this stuff. So if you're going to get in the camera and tell, you know, the media that this stuff happened, why can't you get over here and say, okay, look, this issue is racially unifying. We're all slaves. We're all in this. These people at the top up here, they don't care what color you are. They don't care. The people who are pulling the strings don't care. You know, they just want to screw everybody. So why can't we get together on this issue? Do you know how the other countries would look at this if we all got together on this issue? So I'm admonishing you to go tell somebody of, you know, they could be Oriental. I know there's probably a lot of Hispanics in Texas, but don't just stay within your group. Go outside of your group and try to influence some people. And you believe it or not, you know, when I grew up in the church, the people are they're moral people. They believe, they have belief system, okay? They may be a little bit fearful, but I think that they'll be easier to influence if you come to them with some information. You can use my name, you can use my face, whatever, but let's get out there and try to get people involved, because a lot of times when I go to meetings, you know, it's maybe one or two, there may be one or two people from a different race and all that, but we got to get this thing together, because what's going to happen is when we come at this thing locking hands over an issue that's affecting all of us, this thing is gonna implode on itself. It's gonna implode. Another thing that was brought up in one of the conversations that I had with somebody at the back is about our education system. Briefly, in order to influence, what was it that Hitler said? Let me control the textbooks and I'll control Germany. Do you all know that there are certain textbooks that we have right now with 8 pages about Marilyn Monroe and 2 or 3 pages about the Founding Fathers? This is all by design, okay? So our children are coming into the government schools and they're going through the 12th grade and they're not learning how to read based on the scores. They're not learning how to write. They're not learning adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. They're learning cultural diversity and all these other things. And we're not going to, see, those that pull the strings have this design. Now, they're influencing us this way, but in order for them to have the minimal resistance with our youth is to start teaching them when they get into school. So they can be drones. How many of you seen the Star Wars? Those things come out. You know, that's what they're creating here. And I know I'm not the first one to say this, and I probably won't be the last, but I wouldn't have my kids in the government schools. Now, my kids are in private Christian school. I tried homeschooling for a couple of weeks at one point. I am not graced to homeschool because I have 2 strong-willed children and it didn't work out. But some of you can homeschool. And if I had to dig ditches, people, I'd rather dig ditches than have my kids in the government school. Am I done?
Oh, no, ma'am.
Okay,
No, ma'am.
I would rather dig ditches than have my kids in the government school. So if it comes to the point where I'm not making enough money to keep them in there, then I'm going to dig ditches. I'll work at McDonald's. I'll go to Burger King. I'll do whatever. But they are not going to government schools. And I suggest that you tell your children, those of you who are grandparents, and your friends, and explain to them that they need to protect our kids. And right now, they're drones, and they're coming up, and they're gonna tell you that you are the one that's wrong. Another thing that was brought up in one of the conversations that I had with somebody at the back is about our education system. Briefly, in order to influence, what was it that Hitler said? Let me control the textbooks and I'll control Germany. Do you all know that there are certain textbooks that we have right now with 8 pages about Marilyn Monroe and 2 or 3 pages about the Founding Fathers? This is all by design, okay? So our children are coming into the government schools and they're going through the 12th grade and they're not learning how to read based on the scores. They're not learning how to write. They're not learning adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. They're learning cultural diversity and all these other things. And we're not going to, see, those that pull the strings have this design. Now, they're influencing us this way, but in order for them to have the minimal resistance with our youth, is to start teaching them when they get into school. So they can be drones. How many of you seen the Star Wars? Those things come out. You know, that's what they're creating here. And I know I'm not the first one to say this, and I probably won't be the last, but I wouldn't have my kids in the government schools. Now, my kids are in private Christian school. I tried homeschooling for a couple of weeks at one point. I am not graced to homeschool because I have 2 strong-willed children, and it didn't work out. But some of you can homeschool, and if I had to dig ditches, people, I'd rather dig ditches than have my kids in the government school. Am I done?
Oh, no, ma'am.
Okay,
No, ma'am.
I would rather dig ditches than have my kids in the government school. So if it comes to the point where I'm not making enough money to keep them in there, then I'm going to dig ditches. I'll work at McDonald's. I'll go to Burger King. I'll do whatever. But they are not going to government schools. And I suggest that you tell your children, those of you who are grandparents, and your friends, and explain to them that they need to protect our kids. And right now, they're drones, and they're coming up, and they're gonna tell you that you are the one that's wrong. I hope you're getting a lot of information. We're trying to get it out there, and I'm hoping that you're sucking it in.
We are.
Where are the other ones? Okay. I had a little plan here, but they're not with the program. I wanted you to know, of course you know I'm Sherry Jackson, and this is my daughter Raina. I have a son somewhere around, but I wanted them up here for an example, and I'm gonna let her go back to the room, but I wanted to say first of all that this is why I do what I do. How many of you have not heard my testimony? A lot of you. Okay, so the ones who have, just bear with me. And I didn't get away with having just this mic, unfortunately. I'm so upset because I don't like these things because I like to put my hands on you and bug you. But so some of you will be a little bit safe. You on the first row, you're not safe. Okay. As stated before, I'm an ex-IRS agent. I'm also a certified public accountant, a certified fraud examiner. I worked for the Internal Revenue Service from 1988 to 1995. Before I get into that job, I wanted to let you know something, because there's maybe some people out there that, how many IRS agents are in the room? CID agents, FBI agents? I know you're not going to tell me anyway. That's okay. That's okay. I wanted to prove a point here. A lot of people run around saying that people like us are kooks. Well, they can't say that about everybody, but they might say, well, those 3, that John Turner and that Joe Bannister and that Sherry Jackson, they're just disgruntled ex-employees. They're just, they'll pass it off. But I wanted to show you, Joe and John came all the way from California, and I'm sure that they have these too. I wanted to put it on the record that we excelled. Joe Bannister was at the top of his class. I'm sure John Turner got accolades. Here, I started at the IRS in 1988, and I got the fraud award. I became the fraud queen almost off the bat. Okay, so I got this award. Somewhere along the line, I got this award from inspection. And these are just the ones that I put on the walls. I have little ones. This one comes from the Internal Revenue Service Commissioner. The commissioner to me So nobody can say that Sherry Jackson, John Turner, or Joe Bannister were disgruntled employees. For the record. I had a moral decision to make. Remember, Mama said, stand for what is right, no matter what. Okay? So I thought about what I had learned about the income tax, what I had learned about the Federal Reserve not being federal, and them collecting $40 million an hour in interest. People, the Federal Reserve collects $40 million an hour in interest from us. And I started thinking about those kids. And I said to myself, that $20,000 check that I'm writing at the end of the year, that's my son's MIT tuition for a year. Now, am I going to have it for him, or am I going to give it to the great-great-grandchildren of the owners of the Federal Reserve? Because, see, my dad and my granddad have already paid for the current family, the Federal Reserve owners. They never have to work a day in their life collecting $40 million, that cartel, $40 million an hour. So I would be putting in for generations to come. Am I going to help my posterity, or am I going to help their posterity? Am I going to be an informed slave, or am I going to get off the plantation?
Yeah. Come on. Come on. Come on.
So I decided that I didn't want to be an informed slave. I'm going to stand up for what's right. Oh, well, people come along and say, well, Sherry, how's the country going to run? Okay, I did my research. I found out about a report. The Grace Commission reports, 2,800 pages, but basically what it says is none of the money that is collected in income tax goes towards the services that Americans say that they're getting, okay? None of the money. Where does it go? Again, we pay $40 million. I want you to remember that, $40 million an hour in interest to the Federal Reserve. Another one of the questions is, well, here, we don't hear any of this on TV. Duh. The same people who own ABC, CBS, and NBC also are the Federal Reserve owners. In other words, when you have a large corporation, it only takes a small percentage of the stock to have significant control. And like Rockefellers through Chase Manhattan Bank own, over 10% of ABC, CBS, and NBC. So there you go. Why would they rat on themselves on television? A lot of people, unfortunately, and we'll talk about educated people later on, but they depend on 2, 5, and 11. It's ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and all those for all their information. It's not here. If you want to know the truth, you're going to have to go get on the internet, look at the BBC, the Italian paper. They know what's going on, and we don't, because we don't go beyond that box. I'm going to teach you today how to think outside the box. A lot of people say, well, aren't you afraid they're going to take your stuff, they're going to take your house, they're going to take your car, they're going to, whatever. And I think God had me in place at the IRS, so I wouldn't be afraid of them, because I'm not afraid of them. When I come into the IRS for whatever reason, they want to say, who are you here to see? Who are you here to see? They don't want to see me because they know the integrity that I have, and they know if I'm representing somebody, then I have my stuff together. So they don't want to see me coming in there. They just don't. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm beyond stuff. I'm a dangerous person, y'all, because I'm beyond stuff. House, car, that's just stuff. It's stuff. Okay? I have parents, if God wants them to take the house, they're going to take the house, the car, whatever. But if he doesn't want it, they're not going to get their hands on it.
That's right.
I have a family. My family's been very supportive, because, again, they always told me to stand up for what was right. And I've done enough research to know that I know that I'm right, and I'm confident in it. One of the things before I sit down for lunch that I wanted to impress upon you is that you need to know that you know that you know. Don't listen to anybody. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Joe Bannister. Don't listen to John Turner or anybody else. You need to do the research on your own. was at the IRS. Here is a little copy of the little badge that I used to have. I have my little special case with the Internal Revenue Service, Department of Treasury on it, and my little picture, and I flip this out. You've got to give me your books and records. You've got to give me your bank accounts. You've got to give me your credit card statements. And flip it out, and people, they'll do that. And I go to the courthouse, and I flip it out, and the people at the courthouse will run around and get me what I want and all this power and all of that. And somebody emailed me some information one day since I've been gone. This was from the Internal Revenue Manual. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but it tells you about this thing called the Pocket Commission. And what I found out was that there are two types of Pocket Commission: an enforcement Pocket Commission and a non-enforcement Pocket Commission. The enforcement Pocket Commission is what Joe Bannister had. The ones who carry the guns and the badges had enforcement Pocket Commissions. The non-enforcement Pocket Commission, as it was described, is just what I had. This little thing here with my picture in it, it says the name of the revenue agent or revenue officer, it was me and John, whose signature and picture appear above, is duly commissioned as Internal Revenue Agent or officer and has authority to perform all duties conferred upon such officers under all laws and regulations administered by the Internal Revenue Service, including the authority to investigate and to require and receive information as to all matters relating to such laws and regulations. Then it has the commissioner's signature, district director's signature, and some numbers down here. And these little numbers and letters tell what district. This says SER, which this is the Southeast region. And then it ends in A. That A means administrative. So I was out there on the front line flipping this thing around with no authority whatsoever. Remember that. This is part of education. Another little one of those sidetrack things. You that have young children or you that have grandchildren, teach them how to play chess. Teach them how to play chess. They will learn how to think. When you move a chess piece, before you move that piece, you got to figure out who's around you and what they can do to take your piece. That other person, when that person moves, you got to think, why did they move there? What is it that they see in my arena that they can get to if I move a certain way? So that'll make you think. Teach them how to play chess. Forget about all these little other games and these video games, things. Just get them to learn how to play chess. That'll open up a whole new world to them as far as thinking is concerned. Okay, the game is to keep you dumbed down. The media, the entertainment world, and the education system is out there to keep you dumbed down. Let's talk about the media. ABC, CBS, NBC. What do we got? We got WWF Raw, As the World Turns, One Night to Die, and all that other stuff like that. It's keeping people dumbed down. Seriously, though. I hear that my grandfather was talking about some guys in the barbershop when TV first came out, and the barbershop guys. And one of them said that this is going to be the death of us. And he was right, because little Susie's in this room watching TV, little Joey's in this room watching TV, Mom and Dad are in here watching. We're not fellowshipping anymore, we're not communicating anymore, and the trash that they have on the television these days, we need to turn the boob tube off. That's what Mama said, turn off the boob tube. We've got people like Jerry Springer and shows like my grandmother slept with my boyfriend, and we're not making sense here. And this is all in a grand scheme of things. This is all in the plan. You keep them dumbed down, they're going to be focused on that. They're not going to think. And then we can put anything by them that we want to put by. So we've got to get a new mindset and get out of that. Amen. Entertainment. The entertainment world, I call it the god of entertainment. Do you realize that we pay boys $5 million a year to throw, hit, punt, and dunk balls, and the average teacher over her 30-year career makes less than $1 million? What's up with that? we're sitting on our dust and letting this stuff happen, and we're not doing anything about it because we're not educated. So education is going to be the key to unlocking all of this. Now, I'm going to get into education, formal quote-unquote education. Now, those of you who are from Georgia, who heard the news last month that Georgia's 50th in the nation as far as education is concerned. Mississippi beat us. Arkansas beat us. Alabama beat. Georgia is 50th in the nation. 50th. And you know what? I saw a study that came over the internet not too long ago that said that the United States is behind several other countries that even used to be considered third world countries. So we're at the bottom in the world, and then Georgia's at the bottom in our country. Now, I'm going to say this, and you don't have to like it. Get your kids out of the government schools. Get them out. Okay? Now, and I say government schools because they are. And I wasn't aware until yesterday, because we've got this Cobb County thing going on, where Cobb County has just gotten the law to say that they can teach other things besides evolution. And so now the other critters are going to fight them on that and all that. I wasn't aware that some time ago the Supreme Court said that teaching creationism is teaching religion, so they can't teach it. You can't even teach it. Now, evolution is more of a theory than creation is. And also, I don't know how many of you know that Derwin reneged on all his stuff later on in his life, but you won't know about that. But anyway, they can't even teach it. Why you have your kids in there? Oh, I can't afford it. Sell the Lexus and get a Buick. You're the parent or the grandparent, and you're in charge of education. The school has them, 6-7 hours a day, and then it's time to go to bed about 8 or 9 o'clock. So between that time, you got to eat and have homework. So somebody else is raising them. So in order for us to get our freedoms and liberties back, we've got to take back over the education of our kids.
Revenue Service, for the Department of Justice, and for the Senate Finance Committee for their upcoming April 11th hearing, the hearing that we were banned from. I want to know why a private, unauditable banking organization, the Federal Reserve, is in charge of the money supply, using the IRS as bouncers to strong-arm anyone who opposes the club, using unauthorized revenue agents to collect $40 million an hour in interest from hard-working Americans. I want to know why Congress doesn't print the money itself and eliminate income taxes altogether. I want to know why the IRS and the Department of Justice won't meet with us, answer our questions about the legality of the income tax, and prove us wrong so we can put this baby to bed. I want to know how the IRS can demand over 30% of my hard-earned money when God only requires 10%. I want to know why the media has blacked out coverage of all intelligent debate and discussion on the income tax while focusing on people in trouble for arguments that are not on point to the truth. I want to know why you continue to think the American people are not paying attention to this issue. As of April 3rd, 2002, CNN reported that over half the American citizens had not filed a 2001 tax return. Americans are not stupid. The sleeping giant is waking up. I want to know what Constitution the Congress and the courts are following. It certainly isn't the one in the National Archives, based on what it says and what they are doing. I want to know who in this great country is willing to stand up and prove Alan Dershowitz wrong. This guy is the Harvard law professor who says, we don't have any unalienable rights, that all our rights are subject to modification, that the government should not be chained by the Constitution because the government can do good things for people. Yeah, right, Professor. I want to know why there are people sitting in jail for failure to file when these questions have not been answered. Let them out until you show us the law. I want to know why, after physical slavery was abolished in 1865, how it is that I'm still a slave in 2002. I challenge the Congress, the press, law enforcement, and any citizen with a backbone to turn off the TV, put down the romance novel and the golf clubs for just long enough to demand the answers to our questions from Congress while there's still some faith in the system. Show me the law. Thank you.
Sherry Jackson.
I also want to thank everybody for coming out. You are a brave set of people. As far as where we go from here, I encourage you to continue to educate the people in your community, come up with ideas to get your churches involved and your civic organizations. One of the things that I've been doing ever since the IRS has come back with all these terroristic threats against us is I've been telling people, okay, there's $400,000 worth of reward money out there if you can prove that we have to file and pay an income tax. Now, people, if you believe the government is right, why can't you get the $400,000? Hey, this will be easier than winning the big game. This is serious, because what I don't like is for people to be uninformed. I don't like for people, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, that's why I'm telling it to you this way. I don't want people to look at me after I've told them this information without having done any research and come up with an opinion about it. So I challenge everybody to come up with some research that'll show us. And you know, I'll rejoice with them when they get the $400,000. So that's one of my main talking points now. And I want to address a little bit about the 60 Minutes. I was appalled at the 60 Minutes presentation. Now, this lady, Raylana Fields, had talked to me at least 90 minutes, at least twice, and I'm sure she's talked to a whole bunch of the other researchers and gotten enough information to give a balanced story. But it's time for us to start turning off the television if we can't get unbiased reporting. Okay? And as far as the Cato Institute guy is concerned, I am not a foolish hero. I am a Christian woman who has turned off the Oprah show, shown Judge Mathis, and ignored Days of Our Lives and the Practice. I've picked up a copy of the Constitution, the Internal Revenue Code, and the Creature from Jekyll Island, and I found out that I've been raped and duped for years, and I'm sure you have too. And this can't go on. My college education for my children has been taken away from me, and all the sweat and tears in my office with all-night visuals to get deadlines has been for the benefit of other than those in my household. And I'm not going to take it anymore. And so I stand here again and continue to ask the same question. Where is the law? Show me the law. My name is Sherry Jackson, for those who weren't here yesterday.
I'm a certified public accountant. I've been a certified public accountant since 1987. I was an internal revenue agent in the Atlanta district for 7.5 years. And as of the year 2001, I became a certified fraud examiner. I'm here to summarize the tales of ignorance, deception that you've heard over the last 2 days, and I'm here to inform you of the state of the nation so that you may choose your course of action. Now, you've heard the truth of how the Internal Revenue Service, the Department of Justice, the Federal Reserve, and the politicians have perpetuated the smoke and mirrors, dog and pony show on you, the American people, over the last 88 years. You've heard of the American families that have been destroyed and devastated by the invasion of privacy, unbridled fear placed upon them through threats of liens, levies, and even jail time. In my tenure as an Internal Revenue agent, I personally saw marriages broken, families torn apart, and homes confiscated, businesses destroyed, all while my colleagues and I were out making unjust demands on the American people without the authority. So I want you to be the judge, okay? You've seen that Commissioner Charles Rosati, Dan Bryant of the Department of Justice, the majority of our congressional delegation, and our civil servants have refused to do their jobs. It would have been as simple as answering the questions of these well-educated researchers in a public forum such as this one, but they have reneged, so you be the judge. Now, you've learned that the Constitution of our United States has been trampled on and ignored through allowing the privately owned Federal Reserve to create paper money, charging you, the American people, over $47 million an hour in interest. I'm going to say that again. You might not have gotten it. They charge you over $47 million an hour. And that is money coming from the mouths of your children and the college education funds of your grandchildren. All the while, the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren of the Federal Reserve owners never have to work a day in their lives. And that is wrong on so many different levels, people. It is so wrong. And let me tell you, as a black woman, I am keenly aware of the history of slavery. But did you know and do you understand that we're all slaves under this system? Do you understand that the media and Hollywood play a part in keeping American people so fixated on Ally McBeal and WWF SmackDown and Moesha and The Practice that we don't take the time to read The Creature from Jekyll Island, study the Internal Revenue Code, and read our own Constitution?